Good morning, everybody, on this rainy, it's about to be rainy Thursday in Wichita. It's thundering outside my window, so it's kind of interesting watching like the ominous clouds come in. But today we are going to talk about threes in relationships and in love. And I'm excited about this. Full disclosure, my partner is a three, so I have my own take of what that's like from my perspective. But I also have some good friends that are threes, and I think all of us, we can know different people in these numbers as this passes. But I think specifically, while I talk about relationships, I'm going to be more biased when it comes to threes and sevens because of my own history and because my partner's a three. But threes are awesome. I mean, obviously, I think that to some extent. They are the achievers of the world. They they find their self-worth and their value through achieving things. That's really what gets their mojo going. And on the other end of that, sometimes because they're so focused on achieving things and setting goals and getting there and putting all of their energy into that, they can lose touch with other things that help them with other parts of their lives and in relationships. So other things like tapping into their emotional experiences. So threes often have a really hard time with emotions because they don't see emotions as useful when it comes to achieving their goals. And basically anything that isn't very useful as far as achieving their goals, they are going to not work on or not really pay attention to because their whole life focus is achieving goals and making headway in that. Sometimes this can be kind of like they say the flaw of the three is vanity, but I've seen threes where it's not so much that they want to achieve things to show it off for other people, but it's more how they prove things to themselves. It's the way that they make sense of the world to themselves. And so often they set their own goals and they have to achieve their own goals, but it doesn't have to be something that they show off to other people. Now, some threes, they do have to show off to other people. And so you might find that a three is somebody who's like, I'm going to work my butt off and I'm going to get this Lamborghini. Or I'm going to work my butt off and I'm going to be on the cover of Forbes magazine because that's just kind of what fuels them and motivates them. But the type threes that I've known, it seems like it comes from more of an intrinsic or an internal place, and they're not as showy. It doesn't seem to be like a thing where they're like, hey, I have to get this car or prove to other people that I'm good. Although I think internally they definitely need that validation for themselves. And as a partner of a three, it's really important that you give them credit for what they do and the achievements they do make. They do really like getting credit for that. They like to be known for it. They love it when people give them accolades for that as partners, but they have to be meaningful accolades because sometimes if they feel like they're not coming from the heart or they're too sugar-coated, it's really hard for them to accept very sugary compliments. So they have to be genuine and but they do like to be recognized for all the things that they do because that is how they see themselves in the world and how they make sense of if they're doing okay or not. The problem is sometimes for a three, if they have a partner who's not also very motivated and achievement oriented in one way or another, not in the same way as a three, but just that they don't have goals as much as they do, they can sometimes be a little judgmental of their partner because they don't quite understand why they're not like hustling and achieving and going towards goals. So for a three, sometimes it's best that they pair with somebody who also has at least some goals or that they can respect on that level because they have a hard time not judging people when they don't have these like major goals and different things that they set out to achieve in their own lives. The other things about a three in a relationship is that because they can struggle sometimes with emotional intimacy, it's hard for them to have deep emotional conversations. It's hard sometimes for them to talk about the hard things in relationships. And so usually when you talk to a three about hard things, you have to do it in a way where you are communicating in their language. So for instance, sometimes even in my own relationship, I will say things like, this will be more effective if we work on this part of communication, and kind of really logically laying it out for them and why it will benefit them from a non-emotional place. Because if you try to go at it from an emotional place and say things like, well, this hurts my feelings, or this is not a nice thing, they're not going to like be as on board about it. Again, it's not that they're trying to not be empathetic, but their 3-oriented mind is always looking at like, what's logical, what's the most effective, what's going to get me towards my goals and towards our achievements. And so when you come to them with conversations about the hard stuff or hurt feelings, it's best that you do it in a way that you communicate to them why it's important and why it's effective, that you do it that way, and kind of give them some tangible, like, we will have more efficient conversations and this will go better and this really benefits you. So that's just a little insider's tip for that. The other thing though is that sometimes for them, because they struggle with like the communication via words of emotional intimacy, they will share their emotional intimacy through more physical means or through like their sexual relationship with you. That is typically where they will show more of their depth, because they do have a hard time speaking it through words. But sometimes if the 3 is feeling more that has to be something they have to be good at too, they can lose that emotional intimacy and get caught up in, I have to be this like amazing lover, so to speak. So type 3s are wonderful. They make things happen in the world. They get things done. They typically do really well in their careers and can really move things and be the innovators of the world too. And it's very important that they learn how to tap into empathy, because sometimes with their partners, they can really struggle with understanding the other person's emotional experience. And as a partner, that can, if you don't understand that they genuinely struggle with empathy across the board, it can feel personal. It can feel like, wow, why can't they like fully understand or put themselves in my shoes? But that is something that an integrated 3 would have, but the average 3 is going to very much struggle with. So with all of these numbers, we can always work on the areas that we struggle with and become in a more integrated place. So 3s can gain empathy over time, but they are not naturally empathetic. And so that is definitely going to impact the relational dynamic, and their partner is going to have to make sure that they don't get too offended by the 3's lack of empathy as the 3 is working towards integration. All right, y'all. I love talking about the 3 because, again, I've had personal experience with that, but I think they're awesome. They're wonderful achievers, and when you see them go through integration, it is a beautiful thing, and probably vice versa. As I get more integrated, I know my partners are like, that's good. This is a good thing for you to be more integrated and work on your stuff. So I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday, and we will talk about type 4s tomorrow.